we are going to go ahead and bring in the Dr. Jonathan Silberman. He is a professor of economics at Oakland University and director Southeastern Michigan Economic Data Center. Thank you so much for being with us. That's a very long title you have.
Yes, it's a mouthful, but I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So, give us the lowdown. What do you think the future is looking like for our economy? I know a report just recently came out for Oakland County saying, well, it's bad. Maybe it's not as bad as first feared.
Well, I think what's happened locally here, there was this shock on the economy that was unprecedented, where the economy shut down except for essential services. So, to give you some idea, basically employment in Metro Detroit before the pandemic was about 2,100,000 people were employed. Once the pandemic hit, that dropped to about 1,500,000. So what's lost there is 600,000 jobs. At that point, the unemployment rate was a little over 23%. So these are horrific numbers. Since then, in the last few months, there's been a very sharp rebound. So today, employment is about 1,871,000, and the unemployment rate has dropped to 9.6%. So after this very sharp rebound, we're still short 200,000 jobs, and the unemployment rate is basically double what it was before the pandemic. So there's been a sharp rebound, but there's a long way to go to recover. And in the last 2 months, it looks like the economy is flatlined. It's not really growing very strongly, nor has it started to decline. So I think that's where we are right now.
And I also wonder, of all the people that were able to go back to work or to find new jobs, how many of them are actually underemployed who took jobs just to put food on the table, and what the long-term impact of that could be?
Well, of course, we for the local economy, we don't have the detail on that statistic, but what it appears has happened is that people with high incomes have recovered most of their jobs, and they can work remotely. With people with low incomes, still are about 28 or 30% below the employment levels they were previously. So the recovery has really highlighted the inequality.
Dr. Jonathan Silberman with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's a professor of economics at Oakland University and the director of the Southeast Michigan Economic Data Center. So with that in mind, with all this information in mind, Dr. Silberman, what is the forecast as of now in terms of where that recovery is going? You said it's kind of flatlined. Do you expect it to pick up again? Do you expect that it could potentially have another dip in the coming months or the coming year as the pandemic continues and maybe possibly even ends?
Well, okay, I'll try to answer this question, but I always say economic forecasting is a very hazardous occupation. There's only one way to make a forecast, and that is somehow use the past. And the past is not a good guide to the future. And of course, now the future of the economy depends on the course of the pandemic. So I don't have a good forecast of what's going to happen there. And to that, we can also add how people are going to react to the pandemic. How are they going to adapt to living with COVID-19? What's going to happen when the vaccine is available? How effective will that vaccine be? Will people take that vaccine? And how long will it take until the pandemic is under control? to all that, we can add the additional uncertainty of the government response. I think it's pretty clear that given the large number of people unemployed and the effect on low income workers, that we need more government support. And so far, Congress has not given that support. So with all those uncertainties stated, my forecast would be that there's going to be very slow progress for the next 6 months. And then maybe we'll get some clarity on all those issues I previously discussed that are really not directly related to economics, but impact economic behavior. So I would forecast slow progress for the next 6 months until we can get some more clarity on those other issues.
We all seek clarity, that is for sure. Dr. Jonathan Silberman with us. He's a professor of economics at Oakland University and the director of the Southeastern Michigan Economic Data Center. So, Doctor, I wonder, at the beginning of the pandemic, the one thing that was so clear was the vulnerability of the supply chain. We have so many products that are made overseas. Do you think because of this crisis, some of those jobs could be coming back to the United States?
Well, yes, there's likely to be a long-term impact on globalization, and I think a lot of firms will be rethinking their supply chains. So the statistics so far show, like employment, that there's been a very rapid increase in trade. Trade has come back, but again, substantially below the level it was before the pandemic. So I think some jobs will be coming back to the United States as companies rethink their supply chain. I think, particularly what was shown to be a problem was in the medical products.
Dr. Jonathan Silberman with us. He's a professor of economics at Oakland University and the director of the Southeast Michigan Economic Data Center with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And so with that being the case on a local level, there's been a lot of development also from aid from the county level and aid from the federal level to some extent in helping and supporting small businesses to continue their operations throughout the pandemic. As you had mentioned previously, there hasn't been that second supplemental from the federal government to help the individual worker. Do you believe that the assistance that's being given to the small businesses by the state, by local counties, and from the Federal CARES Act and other programs that have been in place will continue to help those businesses to a certain extent to extend their stay out a few more months, but could ultimately hurt them later on down the line if other people that are stimulating the economy, such as workers, are not able to get further assistance from the federal government?
Well, the CARES Act and the basically $3 trillion, which is 10% of GDP, an enormous injection into the economy, that was absolutely necessary at the time. I mean, maybe you could have better designed something, but it had to be done very rapidly and injected immediately in the economy, given the stop that was imposed on economic activity. At the time, I think the thinking was that was disaster relief, like for a hurricane, that it would be short term, then the pandemic would be under control, and there would be the V-shaped recovery, and businesses would bounce back. And we wanted to make sure businesses, particularly small businesses, were viable and workers were connected to their employer. Now, 6 months later, we know that this is not really disaster relief anymore. Now it is more typical stimulus relief uh, because many of these businesses are not going to be coming back that quickly. Uh, so I think we now know that, and we need more help for small businesses, and we need more help for people who are unemployed.
Yeah, 6 months into this has been a long, hard road for so many businesses and their employees as well. And Doctor, I wonder if we don't get this last round of stimulus help, as you were saying, it's stimulus. It's not just a disaster relief. We're past that by now. How much longer can we continue as a country to maintain even the status quo where we are now? I mean, there are some businesses that still aren't reopened, such as movie theaters. So, how much longer can this go on without another huge handout from the government?
Well, I think if there's not more stimulus from the federal government, then the economy is going to slow down and may dip back into negative growth and deeper recession. Um, I'm always confident or thinking that the government will come up with another stimulus package. I think they will. It's just a matter of when that will take place. I think another way to think about what's happened here is initially the large increase in unemployment was furloughed or temporary workers. And now what we see is an increase in permanent or long-term unemployment. So there's been a big shift. For example, in contrast, during the 2008, 2009 Great Recession, all that unemployment was permanent workers. The temporary or furloughed unemployment hardly changed at all. So now, again, we're seeing more move from temporary to permanent unemployment, which again warrants government stimulus to help these people out.
Well, I'll tell you, some of these numbers are heavy to deal with when you try to put them into, like thinking like it's your own checkbook, trillions of dollars in debt just to try to navigate and survive this pandemic. We're 6 months into it. No one knows for certain where we are going to be coming out of the crisis that we are in the middle of. But I have to say, is there any glimmer of hope in all of this? Can you leave us with something that's a little bit positive?
Well, I'm very optimistic about the U.S. economy, and one of the characteristics of the U.S. economy is how flexible the resources are, so that we can adapt and move resources to their more efficient use. So I feel that consumers and businesses will adapt to this situation and will, repurpose and rethink what they're doing. I think innovation and productivity will take place, and it's just a matter of time before those things all begin to feed on one another, and the economy starts to grow again, and we can put this behind us.
We're all looking forward to the day we can put it behind us. Dr. Jonathan Silberman, he is a professor of economics at Oakland University and the director of the Southeastern Michigan Economic Data Center. We thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us this year. I will say, are you teaching remotely or are you teaching any classes in person?
Oh, absolutely. I'm teaching remotely and learning how to do that and planning to use that knowledge to innovate my classes when I'm back in the classroom seeing the students, which I really enjoy doing.
We're all being forced to learn new things during this pandemic.
Correct.
Well, you're coming out stronger. I'm sure your students enjoy having you as a professor. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.